Hello, and here we go again. This is unified theory before Einstein. As pointed out in my previous videos, there are problems with Einstein's relativity in trying to give a unified theory of physics. Now, if you look at physics before Einstein, in 1905, there was a unified theory of physics, which gets omitted from being mentioned to physics students. It is part of the physics history, but not taught in the physics courses. As I pointed out, Einstein gives no references in his papers, and especially no references in his 1905 paper on relativity. So many people must take this to be a fresh start onto physics with ignoring what has been done earlier. So they admit that there was a unified theory in existence which Einstein must have been working from, if he was properly aware of the existing physics of his day. If saying that physics has been diverted onto wrong track by Einstein, then really should be looking at this unified physics pre-Einstein. So this is the relevant paper. It's by an historian of science, and it was published in 2002. The title of the paper is The Vortex Atom, a Victorian Theory of Everything. Now, Wikipedia explains a theory of everything is a final theory, ultimate theory, or master theory is a hypothetical, single, all-encompassing, coherent theoretical framework of physics that fully explains and links together all physical aspects of the universe. And that is what was being worked on before 1905. There was a unified theory. So Craig says the vortex atom was a foundational theory of physics, and as such it was difficult to subject to experimental tests. As we have seen throughout its lifetime, it was faced with serious difficulties of both an empirical and a conceptual nature. Yet, in the eyes of vortex advocates, none of these amounted to a definitive refutation. Although the theory was abandoned, it was never really refuted and certainly never falsified. So you have this unified theory and it's never falsified. Work was still being done on it. So he goes on to say, to put it in a nutshell, the vortex atom was so rich and flexible and so undetermined that it was practically beyond falsification. Of course, for the very same reason, it was also unverifiable. The mathematical richness of the vortex theory might be considered a blessing, but it was a curse as well. So you couldn't verify the theory. You had a framework of unifying all of physics, but you weren't able to verify the theory. And that's the same sort of problem you have now with unified theory attempts such as superstring theory. So on the same footing. Now let's get to Karl Pearson. As pointed out in a previous talk, Einstein had read Pearson's book because the first book that Einstein suggested for reading with his friends was Pearson's book, The Grammar of Science. So it links to Einstein's work. So Craig carries on. In Pearson's modified theory of 1891, he sought to combine the merits of the extended vortex atom and the Boschian point atom. So basically, Pearson is combining Boscovich with the vortex atom theory, and there you have the link. As I'm pointing out here, we have the link to Boscovich. And now, as a plug to what I've plugged earlier on the previous occasions, the main book on Roger Boscovich is by my friend here, Dragoslav. So, have a unified field theory, in other words, sometimes explained as a theory of everything, tradition that Einstein is working from, and this gets omitted from being mentioned to physics students. What is taught to physics students is mainly concentrated on what Einstein did with those who came after him, and not dealing with what Einstein is working from. Now, there are often headlines like the following: Einstein was wrong, scientists call for a new theory, and this was from an article in 2020. But these articles give no mention of the theorizing context of what Einstein sits within pre-Einstein. So they're saying, oh, they think Einstein's wrong and they need a new theory. But what about the theory which Einstein was working from? They don't mention that, which is Boscovich theory and the vortex atom. So what the mainstream does is just keep sweeping certain things under the carpet. There was a unified theory of physics before Einstein came onto the scene, and they're not going to mention that very often to you. It's just going to be in the history of physics and then just ignored. Thank you, and that's the end.